Welcome to the geometry course. I'm very happy that you've decided to join me. If you took the algebra course with me, you will recognize this notebook as a very familiar sight. And I decided to use this in the geometry course as well because it seemed to work well. It also helps to keep us organized and help this go a little more smoothly. If you did not take the algebra course, this is not hard to learn. You should have a copy of this notebook either from us here at Adult Education, or if you downloaded the course from the internet, you can print your own notebook in color. So either way, you should have a copy of this little file for your notes. So we're going to start Module 1, which is the Angles module. So let's click on that. Before I move forward, I want to remind you, please, to look at the spelling of this word. I will never forget, I was out sick when I used to teach classes. I had had a major surgery, so I was out for a very long time from my math class. And I got an email one night from one of my students who was very happy to tell me that they had begun studying angles with the substitute. And this is how she spelled it. Okay, and that looks like the word angle if you were spelling just phonetically. But the one I wrote at the bottom is angels. So please make sure that you know how to spell this word. Because when you go to college, I want you to know how to spell the word correctly. And that's just a little side story. Let's get into the material. Okay, the first thing you'll notice, this is a page in color in your textbook workbook that you got from Adult Ed, or if you printed your own, the whole thing is in color if you printed it that way. But I want to use this wheel to teach you about the 5 types of angles. So I'm going to zoom in, and the first thing we need to do is mark this wheel into sections. And I strongly encourage you to use a ruler to do this. In most math, it's not that important if your lines are very straight, but in geometry, it is very important. So using a straight edge of some kind, I want you to go ahead and mark just like I'm marking here. So we want to take a straight line across the middle, and my little computer contraption will snap that line straight. I love that feature. And then I also want you to bring a vertical line this way, okay? And while we're on the subject of vertical and horizontal, let's just establish those terms right now. Vertical is up and down. So a vertical line, you can think of this as north to south if you're looking at a standard compass. So vertical is the tall one, and horizontal is the left-right one. So you're looking at east-west. If you think about sitting at the beach and you're looking out at the water, you're looking at the horizon. So horizontal is like that horizon. It is left to right. Okay, let's put some numbers on this circle. Over here, let's start with 0 degrees. And then at this line, we're going to say 90 degrees. And then this would be 180 degrees. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead, even though I don't have a line, I'm going to go ahead and write this 4th quarter down there as 270. So if you are moving around a circle, and here's a fact that you definitely need to know, so I should have told you this first. A circle, and that's any circle that you can draw, if it's a perfect circle, has 360 degrees. And that is something that you need to memorize if you don't already know it. Any circle in the world has a total of 360 degrees. So if you make one lap around a perfect circle, you are doing a 360-degree turn. Let's go ahead and mark the center of our circle. So let's put a big dot right there in the middle. Okay, this will help you visualize the 5 types of angles. And I'm going to start, we'll work our way around, and when we get finished with this slide and with this video, you hopefully will know and understand about the 5 types of angles. You need to know these terms, okay? So I'm giving you a lot of terms to learn. So here's one of them. Vertical, you need to know what that means. Horizontal, you need to know what that means. Okay, let's look at the first type of angle. And I'm going to write these types of angles in a different color, just so you can see those when I'm finished. So I'm going to zoom in right here. I'm sorry if that makes you a little bit seasick. It definitely does me. And I want to look at this area right up here, from 0 to 90 degrees. These angles that you're seeing in here are called acute angles. Acute. And the definition of acute is between 0 degrees and 90 degrees. And when I say between, another way of saying that is less than 90 degrees. That's probably the easiest way to remember the definition of acute. So an acute angle is less than 90 degrees. And I've had students to think that 90 degrees is acute, but it isn't. Acute angles are less than 90. They're between 0 and 90. So the first type of angle that you need to know is the acute angle. And my geometry students used to think of these as little bitty angles, like a cute little kitten or a cute little puppy. These are acute little angles. So they're small angles. And if you look at this wheel, this is why I like this conic wheel. It lets you see the angles as you move up the line. So if you start at 0, this would be 30 degrees. Sorry, I'm having pen problems. And then another 30 would be 60, and then that brings us up to 90. So 30 degrees is acute, 60 degrees is acute. Anything less than 90 is acute. So what if we landed exactly on 90? That is a special type of angle all on its own. So if we're exactly on 90, that is called a right angle. So you have acute angles and you have right angles. There is no such thing as a left angle. And I get that question quite often. It's okay, but there is no such thing. And a right angle is exactly 90 degrees. Not 90.1, not 89.9, but exactly 90 and no more. This is called a right angle. And when you have that right angle, you sometimes see a special symbol down here. This is called the vertex, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. But you sometimes see a box here at the center, and that indicates 90 degrees. So we have acute little angles that are less than 90, and then exactly 90 degrees is a right angle. So what if we just keep going over into this yellow range? So we're at 90. If I add 30, that's going to be 120. And 30 more would be 150, and that brings me up to the 180 eventually. But what about the angles in this range right here, in the yellowish color of this wheel? Those angles are called obtuse, okay? And I like that word because it sounds tough to me. It sounds big and strong, and those are very large angles. They are angles that range from, they're more than 90, but less than 180. Okay. So anything in this range of yellow here is an obtuse angle. So on the other side we have cute little angles, and on this side we have the large obtuse angles. Okay, so an obtuse angle is more than 90 but less than 180. So you know 3 of the types of angles right there in the red. Okay, if you have exactly 180, right on 180, not 179.1 or 180.1, but exactly on 180, you have a straight angle. So exactly 180 degrees is called a straight angle. And that makes sense if you think about it as a straight line. That black line that I drew across the middle, the horizontal one, is a straight line. That is a 180 degree angle. It's straight, it's flat, it's half a circle. It is 180 degrees. So we know a whole circle is 360, half a circle is 180. And that's a straight line. Okay, the last type of angle that you need to know is in this range down here at the bottom. So in the oranges and the pinks and the purple and the blue, the whole bottom half of that circle is called a reflex measure. This is not reflux. Reflux is heartburn. So this is reflex. And these angles are more than 180. Okay. So a reflex angle has passed that straight line, and it is moving on down the line. And let me show you the measurements here. So we have 180, and remember each of these little sections is worth 30 degrees. 30 degrees is acute angle, but we're adding that 30 to each time we change color, we're adding 30 degrees. So if I add 30, I get 210. I add 30 more, I get 240. 30 plus 240 is 270. Moving on around, that would be 300, 330, and then remember our full circle is 360. So that actually lets you see the number measurements of those sections. Remember that a perfect circle always adds up to 360. So you can go around the circle twice, but you can't get more than 360 degrees out of a circle. So I have given you a lot of terms here. We have vertical, horizontal, and then the 5 types of angles. Before I stop the video, let's practice this just a little bit. I'll give you a chance to draw some of these. So if you flip on over to the next page, and pardon my notes here, that just helps me remember what I'm supposed to do on this page. So here on this graph paper, and I gave you graph paper for a reason. We need these lines to be straight in geometry. So you'll see a lot of this graph paper as we go along. Okay, the first thing I want to do is to draw an acute angle. So you can do this with me. You will need a straight edge. And let's draw a horizontal line right there. Okay. And I'm going to put an end point on that line and then an arrow, which means that on one end, the point, it stops. And on the other end, the arrow, it goes on forever. That's called a ray, just for your information, nothing too special about that. But let's say that this is called ray A. Okay, let's connect ray B right here. So draw yourself another ray, and let's call this ray B. And this point, which happens to have a name also, this is called a vertex. I'm going to call this point C. Okay. So to describe this angle properly, you can call it two different things. Let's go ahead and mark the angle first. So I am looking at the angle that is right in here. Okay, that is where we're focusing. Okay, so if we were going to say this in proper geometry language, this is what I would say. Angle ACB, so from A to C to B, is acute. And you say, well, how do you know that it's acute? Because remember, here would be the 90-degree mark, and it is way less than 90 degrees. It's actually about 40 degrees. So it is acute. It is less than 90. Another way that you could name this angle, you could say that means the same, is just by the vertex. So if you don't want to use the A and B, you can just call that angle C, and that's fine. So this is angle ACB or angle C, either way is okay. So this is an acute angle. It's less than 90. One other thing, and I know you can't do this with your paper, but let me show you something. Let's suppose that I turn this angle. Okay, so let's bring him over here where I have some space to work. I'm going to try this if it'll let me. And it won't. I was going to try to rotate the angle, but I can't. It's just going to let me try one other thing. Nope. I know somehow on here I'm able to rotate the angle around, but I can't remember how to do that, and I won't ask you to sit and wait while I do. But if you turn the angle around, it is still acute. Just because you flip it upside down or you turn it on end, it still is acute because we're measuring the yellow part. That's the acute part, and that doesn't change unless you move the lines. So if it were upside down, it would still be acute. Okay, let's draw a perfect 90. So moving on over to this next section, how would we draw a perfectly exact 90-degree angle? Well, it's pretty easy actually. You just draw one ray that's going this way and one ray that's going this way, and there's a 90-degree. You've got that perfect 90-degree angle right there. That is the only time you're going to see this box. If you see that little box, you can rest assured it's 90 degrees. Let me finish the drawing. Put the ray symbols on there and give the vertex a point. And maybe this time we have 3 points. Maybe this one has X, Y, and Z. So we could say that angle X, Y, Z is right. Or we could say angle Y. You can name it with the vertex only. That is perfectly fine. Okay, let's look at an obtuse angle. And I think for this one I am going to, let's just go ahead and do that one below here. Give ourselves a little bit of room. So to draw an obtuse, remember that's between 90 and 180. You would need to draw yourself a ray, and then another ray that's coming off to the angle up here. So here's this one, here's this one, there's the vertex. So we're looking at this big angle right in there. That's the obtuse angle. And I'm going to estimate that this one is about 130. I'm not very good at estimating that kind of thing, but it is definitely obtuse, because here would be the 90. So we went from 0 to 90 and it just kept going. So this one is obtuse, and I'm going to call this angle M. So let's say that angle M is obtuse. These always reminded me of someone by the swimming pool leaning back in a lawn chair. That's an obtuse angle. If they're reclining in a lawn chair, they're at an obtuse angle. Okay, so we have 3 of them. Let me highlight those for you. We have acute, right, and obtuse. Let me draw a straight angle for you. And this one is so easy to draw, it's not even funny. If you want a straight angle, you just draw a straight line. And that's not a straight line, so we can laugh. Let's try that again. This is a straight line. That is a straight angle. If it's not perfectly straight, it's not a straight angle. So this one, here would be the vertex. And remember, you're looking at the 2 rays. And I'll tell you what, don't erase yours, but let me erase mine and show you this a little differently. Let's suppose that I drew 1 ray here. Whoa, that's not good. Let me get rid of the text feature. Try this again here. So I want to draw 1 ray and give it an endpoint. Okay. And then draw another ray and give it an endpoint. It's got a shared endpoint. So the angle is actually between these 2 rays. And that's half a circle. That's half of 360. But because it's a straight line, it's a straight angle. And maybe this is angle R. So we could say that angle R is a straight angle. It has exactly 180 degrees. Remember, right has 90 degrees. And we estimated our obtuse angle at about 40, 45, somewhere in there. I'm not sure. In this one, maybe 125 or 130. Just an estimate. I'm not measuring. But those are the 4 that we've drawn so far. Okay, let's draw a reflex angle. And to do that, let me start us out with some rays. That's the easiest way, I think, to see it. So let's make a ray that points to 0, if 0 is on this side. So there's this ray. And let me try that again. And then let's bring another ray down here. Okay. You might be thinking, well, that's an obtuse angle right there, because someone's leaning back in a lawn chair. They're upside down, but it's obtuse. This is actually not the angle we're looking at. We're looking at this angle that runs from there to there. So the reflex is a very big angle. Remember, here would be 90. Here would be 180. So we have passed 180 and kept going. This is the angle you're looking for. It's almost a complete circle. So I'm going to estimate that this is about 220, maybe. I don't know. I'm just guessing. That's obtuse. So 220 degrees, what am I saying? It is not obtuse. Hopefully you caught that. What should that say? Not obtuse. That should say reflex. Sorry about that. Okay, one more thing I want to show you, and then we will stop this video because it is getting rather long. This thing at the bottom is called a protractor, and you use this thing to measure angles, and I'm going to show you how this works. Okay, so for a minute I'm going to take this thing away. I want to go ahead and just cut it out of my picture. I don't want to delete it because I want to bring it back. So let's see if we can cut it. Yes. So I'm going to draw an angle and then we'll measure it with our protractor. I'll show you how to do that. So the first thing I want to do is let's put this base ray in there. And then let's make this one a big one. So here is the angle that we want to measure. And I can already tell you that it's obtuse, okay? I'm looking at this measurement in here. So this is kind of like the person at the swimming pool that's leaning back in the chair. That is an obtuse angle. It will be between 90 and 180. But let's bring the protractor back and we'll see exactly what it is, okay? So to use a protractor, you have to line up this little thing at the bottom, the crosshairs, on your vertex. So you see how I'm lining this up. And this is very important. This is why your lines need to be very straight. So what I've done, the crosshairs, I can't point to them. I wish I could. But you see the crosshairs, I'm going to bring those to the vertex, to that big black dot. And I'm going to line up my protractor accordingly. And I'll put it in place. So let me set it down there. Actually, let me try something else here because we're going to have a problem with. Let's move this down just a little bit so it doesn't run into our other one up there. So let me bring this on down. Okay. And now let's bring in the protractor and line up the crosshair and set it down. Okay, so this part of the protractor right here is going through 0. That's a very good thing. We want it to do that. And let me change colors because I used yellow on the bottom. Let's use this pink color. So here, this ray is lying on 0. And then if we look at this one, we can tell the measure of our angle. Because look at where this one is crossing. And let me zoom in here so you can see. Do you see that it's crossing right here? If I needed to put a point, I could do that. This is where it crosses the line. So that's at 145 degrees. It's right between 140 and 150. So I can tell you that this angle in here is 145 degrees. Okay. And let me remove the protractor and you can see exactly what I've done there. So let's cut that out and you see I've measured that angle at 145. And then when I put the protractor back down there, I'll have to line it up again. But you can see that it is 145 degrees. Okay, I'm going to stop this video. It got a little bit longer than I intended, but I will see you in the next.